Is the Unnamed Tavern named Unnamed Tavern? Is Unnamed Tavern named Unnamed Tavern, or is it a tavern that's not been named?
We have in finance news, Maanyaa.
Nice.
Right?
That's some cool transition, yeah.
Unsold electric cars are piling up in dealer lots. Now I know, Maanyaa, you wanted to take this one away, so what do you want to tell us about it?
So, electric vehicles are becoming quite popular, but we know that they're not cost effective yet. They're quite expensive to manufacture, especially because of the batteries, which are made from lithium and cobalt, where both the elements are quite scarce and only available in some part. I think so, only one part of the world, if I'm not wrong. Republic of Congo, if I'm not wrong. And so yeah, and at the same time, some countries are getting over the fact that people don't want to buy the electric cars because they are not cost effective by leasing them out, but some countries are still hell bent on just selling them. And then we have the hybrid cars between the electric and the regular ones that are slowing down people from buying these pure electric vehicles that are coming into the market. So either we stop producing electric vehicles till we find a solution for the ones that are already in the market, like we do with the used cars. We do track them where they do end up, we export them, we import them, but we know the life cycle of those cars. We know where they will end up eventually. These electric vehicles, we don't know where they will end up eventually. And my problem is batteries. How are we going to dispose of the batteries? It's not easy to dispose of batteries of the electric vehicles. Yeah, go on, Dapper.
I was going to say they're actually very dangerous. So there's a lot of very nasty chemicals in there. Just the acid on its own that's holding on to the electrical charge there. It's a pretty big problem. If these vehicles were being driven, then they would probably be a net positive for the environment. But sitting in a lot, they're actually a pretty big environmental hazard. It would be better had they not been manufactured than for them to simply sit rusting in a lot. And it really is a problem, because battery disposal there's a reason that even when you have your like AA batteries, that you're not supposed to just throw them in the trash, right? They have places where you're supposed to put them so that they can be properly disposed of. Now, I know for a fact that most people are just tossing them in the trash. You shouldn't be doing that. I get why you do. But these are much worse. They have a higher energy density, which means automatically they're more dangerous. They're made with even more noxious chemicals. It is not a good thing for these things to just sit around. And yeah, I do think that something needs to be done to take the electric vehicle production and match it much more closely to the electric vehicle demand. Now, fortunately, prices will do that eventually on their own. So even if no one takes any steps, eventually those things will tend to equilibrate over time. But in the meantime, we still have this problem. We have to figure out what to do with all of these dangers.
I'll give you a little pushback around the price thing and the market thing.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is that the batteries that are being manufactured for the electric cars, they are made from lithium and cobalt, if I'm not wrong. Those are very, very scarce metals, and the way they are procured at the moment, we don't know the ethics behind that.
No, we don't. But as scarce resources, the more of it that's used in stuff that's not being sold, will tend to then further just drive up the cost of production, because there will be less of it available for making new ones. So eventually, it will tend to give incentives to produce fewer electric vehicles. But yeah, in the meantime, there's still... Look, when we say we don't know much about the ethics, we know in some cases it's pretty bad. There's definitely some
especially around the occupational health of people who end up procuring or extracting these metals for us.
Yeah, in many cases, people includes little children going down into lithium mines.
And so one of the things as well with stuff similar to petroleum products, there are a number of places where these materials can be obtained, but there are a few materials where it is relatively cheap to mine and refine, right? And there's and roof is where the materials are incredibly dense in terms of the like, let's say, lithium system. Now there are other places that are coming online, because as the prices of batteries rise, or the demand for battery rises, which causes the price to go up, some of these newer places becomes economically viable. But the push, like in electric cars, for people to have more range, right, means that people are wanting to have batteries that are more and more sophisticated. It's not just a bunch of D cells stuck in a battery pack on a thing with wheels. These battery systems become quite complex, and sometimes they have very exotic materials going. I think the risk of having stuff just at the Congo, or just places that are under the control of the CCP, that is changing. But it also means now that we have more problematic locations going. Australia is seeing impacts on their lithium sets. Sweden has found a large body of rare earth minerals that are going to be part of stuff. And battery research is continuing for these things to evolve. So it's a changing landscape. That being said, batteries themselves, when they're done, when they're no longer have the voltage or the current to be able to use it, are still dense energy sources. They're still chemical soups. And by tossing them away, you are just moving the problem to someone else's backyard. So here's what I would suggest you do: is just take a little bit of time to find a place that will do e-recycling and will take batteries. Build a container where you can accumulate batteries safely, and then take that to one of those recyclers to manage. That'll be a lot better than tossing them into the garbage. And by the way,
yes,
garbage truck fires happen on occasion because people throw batteries in that are still chemically powerful. They're just not the voltage you want. And those things can react with other stuff in the garbage and set the trucks on fire. This is not an uncommon thing.
Honestly, it's one of those things where redistributing or reorganizing what is considered recyclable and how we deal with recyclable materials is probably going to be a more effective way to get people on board to do something like that. Realistically, if you just had like a Ziploc bag that went on top of one of your garbages that had any batteries you were throwing out in it, and then there was a section of the truck that all those batteries could get tossed into as like a way of collection in a safe manner, would be, because it makes it convenient, it makes it easy.
Yeah, it's all about it's all about like how we transport our dangerous goods, like our hazardous substances. Batteries should be transported the same way, but for some reason they are not. I don't know why. Not all countries do that. Yeah, not all countries do that. Some countries are very strict about it, and they can impose heavy fines if you get caught by the transport authorities. But some countries don't do that. My thing is that I think so the electric vehicle market just stepped ahead itself, because these are still expensive. The main thing is the why they're piling up, and why people are not buying it. It's the cost. And before they could find a cost effective battery for these electric vehicles, they were launched into the market. Yeah, launching a few thousand prototypes so that people get used to it, used to the technology, and then coming up with a cost effective prototype or a model would have been better. But the market just has gone ahead of itself, and now it's not only creating an economic problem, now it's creating an environment problem and an ethical problem at the same time. So I think so companies have to start thinking about the impact they have, not just on consumers and their profits or their workers, but also people who will use them, people who will end up disposing them, and the environment that will end up, under impact due to that disposal, and even other countries, because first world countries have a habit of shipping off their garbage to third world countries, and now the third world countries are like, hell no. So they are sending back the ships now with all the garbage. So it will be soon where you won't be able to just chuck your batteries onto some other third world country. Yeah, there are third world countries that will accept them because they are getting better at recycling them for their local purposes. So I think so in that regards, third world countries are progressing faster because they're finding ways to recycle this. And the first world countries are just lagging because they're solely focusing on profits at this time.
Yeah.
So unfortunate.
In the area, the technology of batteries is expanding quite a bit, right? And it's not just a matter of saying I have a battery with this much voltage. So, for example, you have battery systems that are simply to store power. Like let's say you have a solar power and you want to store the thing temporarily because you want to deliver power at night, for example, do a time shift. You have battery systems that are low power, where you have a device that's quote smart, retains a little bit of memory and a little bit of charge to do that. So you have those kind of systems. You have batteries that try to make a car go zoom, and you have batteries which are trying to do like a motor scooter. And it probably of the set of batteries that I know of for purposes of hazards, probably the e-scooter, motor scooter area is probably some of the worst because the cost of the scooter is low. The quality of some of those aftermarket batteries are really bad, and it's one of those things where you don't want you would not want to. I would not recommend parking a typical motor scooter in your house for that reason. Well, guess what? When it's time to replace those batteries or discard the motor scooter, that's still that battery has not turned into a nice safe bit of stuff. It needs to be recycled. So again, if you find in your area, and there'll be in your area an e-recycler, you can save up and once a month or once periodically go and drop those things by, because there are people there who can take those batteries, safely reduce their hazards, pull out materials that are useful recycling. Much better than simply, the garbage truck takes the batteries, accumulates them, and then chucks them at the end, because your garbage company may not want the batteries in the trucks because they don't want the trucks to catch on fire, but they may take the cumulative stuff and just toss them into a pile to go away. You need someone who's an e-recycler.
So here locally, you can dispose of your the small batteries, the AAAs and the AA's and all those. You put them in a specific bag and you can put them in the garbage. But the bigger the batteries get, after a certain limit, you're not allowed to put them in the garbage, all because of the chemicals in there and how they might react with all the other stuff that's already in the garbage tank that or the garbage truck that's collecting your garbage. And also I think so for consumers, it's about time they started realizing have a sense of responsibility around what they're buying, right? Yeah, electric vehicles, they're easy to charge. The charging stations are everywhere.
I think that people are buying electric because they are trying to be responsible, though.
Yes, they are. But it's just not... I think so they need to do a little more research into what's the end with that, with that technology.
I mean, the question is where do you put that responsibility then, though? Do you put it on the people producing too many cars? Because the issue is that these cars are rotting because they're not getting bought. They're not rotting in somebody's home garage.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Fair.
I think to some extent.
And I think so. We do that, right? Some of the battery manufacturers they do that. They say, okay, if you think your battery's life is over, you come to us. We'll give you a new battery at a discounted price, and we will take the old battery from you, and we will dispose it of responsibly, right? There are some manufacturers who do that. I think so they're local, if I'm not wrong. Not really big ones. So I think so something like that will have to come through by regulation. That whoever is producing these batteries need to take the responsibility of taking them back and disposing them off or recycling them. I think so that needs to be done. And I think so there's also
assisting somebody else or providing information on how to
have a contractor, have a third party, recommend a third party.
Because if you put out a chemical, let's say for fertilizing plants, you have to have a chemical sheet and data safety things and help people who are part of, let's say, it get called because of accidental poisoning. That information needs to be there. Well, the same thing with batteries. You just say these kind of batteries. Here's how to recycle it. Here's how to properly dispose of it. Have the information there so that recyclers can do the right thing.
Yeah.
What do you got, Dapper?
I was going to say that I do think we should be wary of assigning some kind of moral culpability to just overproducing the thing that you're selling. Because if the thing that you're producing is not on its own something that it would be generally considered to be immoral to produce, the fact that you made the mistake of producing more than the demand actually turned out to be, given that you're probably not psychic and probably can't perfectly predict future demand. Yeah. So I don't want to say like, oh, it's bad of the companies to have made too many electric vehicles. They did. It's currently a problem. But I do want to hesitate to say like, oh, they shouldn't have done this. This was bad of them. It's like, no, there's a problem, and they should probably take some responsibility for, the cleanup of these batteries. But I also want to be careful to not say like, oh, how dare you have miscalculated demand for your product. Like, it's a thing that happens. It's never going to not happen.
Yeah, but
you have to do it if you're in business.
It's funny, but it's like, yeah, the miscalculation happens, but I don't know at this level. I don't know if any similar miscalculations happen. Like, yeah, we have had disasters. Like,
part of the article
me,
said that it had to do with supply demand COVID. Right, that's part of what's in the article, right? So it's COVID screwing all that up.
They're blaming on it, yeah.
Yeah, generally speaking, car companies don't set out to spend a whole bunch of money making cars that no one will buy. They're there to make as many cars as will sell, because otherwise they're wasting money, and no car business is in the business of doing that. Sorry, go ahead.
But there's a major exception. There's a major exception to that, right? The CCP, China's Communist Party, does a lot of things for PR purposes to try to show the right stuff, right? That their corrupt whole system has produced an enormous number of electric vehicles that are simply trash, right? They'll take pictures of stuff and they'll trash them in a lot. Because they're trying to show, they think their ego is boosted by the fact of saying, look at all these electric vehicles, right? The fact that some of the quality of those vehicles, it may be dodgy is another thing, but there are companies that are managed by the CCP that produce electric vehicles for the purpose of aggrandizing their ego, not by producing stuff. And if someone happens to buy them, oh, well, they're a sucker for that sort of thing.
And there's also this like whole thing about like the international collective coming together and saying, oh yeah, we will do away with the fossil fuels by this, like, by 2050 or 2053, 55. And the only way think is that they can do it is through electric vehicles. It's not like looking for alternatives. There are many countries who are now considering hydrogen fuel technology. So
a lot of stuff on algae recently.
Yeah. So instead of they're hyper focused on one solution, and that sort of created, if I may dare say, an artificial demand for a product that was not required, in my opinion.
I would say, as a consumer, right? Buying a device that has a battery is not a bad thing.
Right.
Where you can go wrong is when it comes time to dispose it. That's why I said, if you spend a little bit of time finding your area, an e-recycler, then you can take these things that you no longer need and hand them off to somebody else who has a chance of processing it correctly, right? Don't try to recycle a battery yourself. Some are very specialized and nasty and so forth to deal with.
Depending on your local area, you might be able to even get some money back for it.
Yes. Now, also on a case in the case of we have a choice, right? My mouse does not have a battery. My keyboard doesn't have a battery. I don't have an E thing and a Bluetooth thing, which is a whole bunch of for themselves. I have wired a bunch of things, right? Because I don't want to manage a battery, right? When you buy a device that has a battery, because it's got some remote thing, you have to take on the responsibility of saying, well, how often I have to replace this thing? Where's my replacement? And when I'm done with the battery, how to dispose it. If you want to be a responsible consumer and you buy a remote device or a car or a scooter or so forth, also think about how you manage that battery, how it gets charged, how it gets disposed. And again, find an e-cycler who will gladly take your batteries, may even pay you, as Chesh said, for that. That's how you can be a responsible consumer of a battery device.
I have one thing in my house that is really, really bad for needing new batteries way too often. And it is the one thing in my house that came from America.
Oh.
Which America?
Oh.
Which America?
Florida. So, that America. So, like, I have a TV battery. My TV is from, like, 2002. Like, it is an old TV. Like, it is very old. The remote for that TV, I do not have to replace the battery very often for, at all. The Roku stick that's plugged in the TV, I've got to replace those batteries, like, it feels like monthly. But I don't have to do that for the other one, even though it's older, and I don't have to do that for my nunchucks, for my Oculus. It's just this one thing that's just so goddamn bad.
And it's so I have a habit. Every time I get something which has a battery, I put in a list of to-do checks to say, okay, how often do I have to replace this battery, and what do I do with it? Right? I try to keep a list of that sort of thing, and you start to accumulate and find out just how many things around here have batteries in them. Especially if you get things that are more smart. That being said, that can be actually a good ecological way to go. Just do a little bit of effort to understand what to do when you're done with the battery, right?
And now I'm thinking
That's what I would ask you to do.
And now I'm thinking about it. I have a 10-year-old laptop that'll have a battery in it. I've got my Switch that has that charges, but that's got a battery in it. And I have like the two remotes. I think that's everything.
Yeah,
phone, I guess.
But you know, I like in computer stuff. I try to have wired stuff rather than wireless stuff.
Yeah, all my stuff
I
is
don't
wired.
have a hassle of I don't have a hassle of managing batteries, right?
Yeah, so that may be a fun thing for people to do at home. Let us know down below how many, like, if you have greater or less than number of stuff that has batteries, and we'll have to. All of us should also put our numbers down, like just in the house.
I'm looking around just
how many things also remember that number can be used as a proxy to determine how many of certain kinds of items you use.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's not gonna be like we're morally judging you. If you have more than 5, you're a piece of shit.
I think what I'm trying to say is
in my desk area.
I think what I'm trying to say is, Chesh, that you might be asking people to, by proxy, report the size of their toy collection.
I mean, maybe. I'm not telling them what they have to tell me what it is. I could probably say 4 things because I have old phones, right?
If it's much more than a few, that's basically.
Oh, I'm sorry, you've got too many vibrating dildos. My bad. I don't know what that thing is.
The tickle stick requires a battery, right?
It could be literally any.
like Mr. Sirius said, if you have more than 5, send pics.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
But again,
you don't have to participate.
In all seriousness, just because it has a battery doesn't mean it's a bad thing, right? Batteries themselves are not bad. In fact, they can be quite ecological in terms of how they operate and efficient. The thing I ask you to do is to manage that battery, to decide when you're done with it, where to go. And again, an e-cycler is a good way to send those things there, so you're not contributing to the problem of just throwing them away. Right? Yeah. I know it's convenient just to toss them into the garbage can, let someone else deal with it, but that's not the way to manage it. Right? That's where you, I think, do the planet a disservice. So track what your batteries are, recycle them responsibly, and if you have a choice, consider the alternative. I mean, do you really need 7 universal remotes for that TV?
don't have.
And 7 is not an unusual number when someone has, because no one has just one usually roll. You have a bunch of things, right? And of course, my answer is I don't own a TV, so I don't even have any remote stuff. But I go to other people's places where they have a pile of remotes, some of which work, some of which has batteries, some of which are and it's just a bunch of. Yeah.
I'm gonna let Maanyaa go, and then we're getting off of this. We've been on these stupid batteries way too fucking long.
Back home, my parents have like 3 TVs in the house, and each of them have like 2 remotes.
Oh no.
Yeah, it's like
only 2.
God. Only 2.
2 per TV.
Yeah, so 6 in total. Yeah, because they have those like satellite boxes, so you need like 2 remotes for those TVs. So yeah, it's yeah. My family's guilty of it. I'm also guilty of it, man. Right now on my table, I have like 5 devices already that have batteries. That are rechargeable, but are still batteries. You know what I mean?
I have these 2.
Why?
I never replace these. This one I have to replace all the time.
7.
Yeah, for my
8.
like aircon, I've never had to replace the batteries yet. It's been like
I mean, I guess
like,
these
6
technically,
months.
these are rechargeable.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
10.
Yeah.
I see 10 things that have batteries I can see, and I'm missing a bunch. Oh,
Same pics.
The fundraiser for Beethoven's replacement transmission is still going. We are currently past the halfway point as of this stream, right? Before the stream, we were not at the halfway point. We are now past it. Thank you very much. In case you were wondering, this is in fact, Beethoven is a disabled veteran who has been horribly abused by the Veterans Affairs Office to the point of having doctors simply throw away vital paperwork for him, resulting in him having his career ruined. He is currently trying to get back into that career, but having transportation to a new job is an important part of that. And this was an unexpected expense that is extremely, it's very significant. It's extremely significant expense, basically. It's over $4,200 US. It's a lot of money, especially for someone who is trying to get back on his feet and has been struggling just to get to break-even point after losing a career for several years now. Beethoven, in case you don't know, is a big part of not just my channel, but also Chesh's channel. He's done music for Chesh's channel. He's been a guest on Chesh's channel. He's a regular guest on my channel. He does a significant amount of the music that appears on my channel. And I think he's an important part of the community. He does a lot of work both behind the scenes and on camera for my channel and Chesh's channel. And so if you find yourself in a position where you are financially able to help out Bent without, significantly harming your own finances, please consider helping out. It's currently linked in the chat as the pinned chat, and I don't know if it's in the description yet, but it will be. So yeah, check out either of those. As far as I know, the fundraiser is likely to run for a bit more than a week or longer. I'm not sure. Bent hasn't decided how long. He has said though that if it does reach its goal, he will be shutting it down. He's not doing this for his own profit, right? He's not out here like, oh, give me $6 million. No, he just wants to cover this unexpected expense so that he can continue to try to get to this new job that he's working on, make money, get back into the black, save up some more, just try to get back on his feet, basically. So if you find yourself in a position where you can, please do consider giving any amount, $1, $2, whatever, it all adds up.